Horsemanship really started from my father, born in Mexico, and then his half brother. Also, they came to Texas and worked with me at a ranch when I was 16 years old. And I learned quite a bit from my uncle on horses as well as from my dad. And my uncle taught me quite a bit about the braiding, the horsehair Haitian, which makes beautiful work for making your gears as your bosal to start working a young horse, to how to shoe a horse better, how to make ropes. As I was saying, my influence really started on horsehair Haitian from my uncle that I knew very well, but he came to from Mexico and worked with me on the ranch. And it's a shame he didn't spend much time with me. He couldn't, but the little time I had with him, I learned quite a bit. And of course, he told me stories of his own, such as my dad also told me about when he worked in Lantry and Juneau and the horse wrecks they had, because back then everything was done on horseback. So as I've grown older, I've learned to appreciate all the things that I've took time to learn, because that has been an influence to me, and I'm proud to be that type of person. My first horse that my dad ever bought me was the same color of little Joe here, and his name was Joe. My dad paid $30 for that horse when I was 13 years old, and I rode him from that ranch, which is about 20 miles from here, all the way to about a mile from here where I was born and raised at this little place we had. And by then I was already working at this ranch part-time. I was 10 years old when I went to work for that rancher. It's a joy, enjoying life. And then I learned to shoe horses. By the time I was 14, I could shoe my own horse. And I was already working full-time on a ranch at that place where I grew up working and roping and working sheep, cattle, and Angora goats. The ranch life has been part of my life, always been, although now I do a little different work, truck driving, and picked up leather work, and that was kind of something that I started doing myself by taking a saddle apart that I owned that was old and needed work. So I would do that as I was pretty young, and always kept an old saddle that I rode in my bedroom. First saddle I owned that I rode my first horse was one that I worked for it one Saturday, half a day, pulling weeds at a ranch. That was the payment for it. So it wasn't passed on to me free. Everything that I had to work for it, and I was brought up like that. And the first saddle blanket that I used on that was something that my dad made. And we'd fed my horse out of a bag so he wouldn't lose the oats, since he was an old horse, but he was a good horse. And anyway, I loved to rope, so I would sneak over my neighbors, which they never knew, and go through the gates, go into private land, and I would go roping. When I had enough time and got my belly full of it, I'd come shut the gate and pretend I never went in there. So I grew up doing that. You can't tell a boy that loves to rope, you can't rope, because the first chance he's got away from you, he's going to do it. The man that I worked for so many years told me, I know you like to rope. You can rope as long as I don't catch you roping. About a mile from here, which is called the Live Oak Community. And I guess it's because of all the live oak trees is one reason. And it's got history in there. There used to be a schoolhouse next to there. But I had I was the youngest of 11 children, 7 boys, 4 girls, and my dad raised all of us to work hard. We not only worked on ranches, we worked farming, picking cotton, shearing sheep and goats, working on fences and things like that. We worked pretty hard, especially my older brothers. Since I was the youngest, I didn't have to work as hard as they did, but anyway, I still had to work. At the age of 15, I quit school. My dad, all my brothers were gone. It's just me left in home, and 4 daughters of his, my sisters. So he said the best school for me was out there learning how to work. And education was important, but not that important for him, because he never had education. But I don't regret that, because it's made a good man out of me. It's made a man that learned to work for what he wants and not being handed down from daddy or grandma. Everything I've learned it from my parents. My mom was a fine woman. She, I guess I got the cooking side on her, since she was a good cook. This bozal here is what I was talking to before, that my uncle showed me how to do horsehair work. They call it horsehair hitching. Each one of these strings is made out of 10 strings on the tail. You have to pull, and then you put them together, twist them, and here you can see the sorrel, the white tail from a white horse, and you can see black from a black horse, dark. The inside is all horsehair that's been twisted, and that's made out of the mane from mares. But this year it could be gelding or mare or anything, but you have to make those strings. So this is made like a candy cane. It goes around, and it's pretty severe on a horse. As you can see, it's got a piece of leather there that I had put when I was riding the horse. I didn't want him cut in the nose. That's something that I was taught, that to make a good horse, you don't rough out the nose. Otherwise you get a callus, like you do it in your hands, and then don't hurt. So this here is a piece of cowhide braided with leather. And here you see another piece of the fine work that me and my uncle from Mexico, that he taught me. Again, it's a knot that was made here, and we put black tape so we can even it out nicer in it. Then we start tying this rope, the string, and we start hitching it, every bit of it. So you can see the time consuming on this. You can see the wear on this side where it was used on a horse. It goes back on the back of the chin. And that doesn't matter much to us, because normally you always put a curb chain on a bit. So that's the only rough part we use on a horse. I was looking at this headstall that I made and put on it, and it says Horsehair Bozal, made by Victor Torres, 1967. We're on 2020, so that would make it 13 years ago. I was 16, I'm nearly 70 in another 5 months. So I can go back now and see what I started, that I was taught by, you could say, by my ancestors, my uncle, my daddy's brother. And this is a job that you don't even find the younger generation doing anymore. As you can see, it's real fine. And as I said, every string there has 10 strings tied together, twisted. And then you start making all your other strings. This is your finish off part right here, as you can see. You have to twist it to the inside so it'll never come apart. Here's where you started off. You can see the knots on that It's not perfect, but it's all handwork, no machine here. As I said, this has been twisted. This is all horse mane off of mares. It's softer than this here is. You cannot use the horsetail for elite ropes. It would be too rough to use. But this is the job that we did, that I learned to do, and I can still do it and plan to start doing it again. I want to do some more. I want to continue soon so that I can leave work behind that people can remember me of the work I did. And hopefully somebody in the generation, my kids or grandkids someday, will pick it up, or even my step-grandchildren, which I'd love to teach how to not only do this, but the boot work, which also now I'm into doing besides this kind of work.